This week's episode was brought to you by Lester Salvador and Norcator 3000. Thank you, Lester Salvador and Norcator 3000. It's with the generous support of listeners like you and our squad of highly pressure-sensitive rabbit agents echolocate paranormal activity in the most unlikely of places, capture it using parapsychological containment field flux capacitor relays, study it, and reverse engineer the specimen for fun and profit. If you'd like to help us reverse engineer ghosts, or just hear the second half of this episode, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only earn you instant access to our entire library of exclusive extended-length rabbit hole diving episodes, I'll send you a 5x5 high-quality vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art at no additional cost to you, and if that were not enough, I'll even send you the secret keys to our Discord server, where we continue our ongoing investigation into topics too crazy to share in public. If you'd like to offer even more support for our ragtag bunch of philosopher rabbits, higher tiers also exist, which include tarot readings, exclusive merch, a Barrel Bunnies patch, and more. Considering that we get by each week with the help of our community and the seat of our pants, we're always grateful for more support. In this week's show, we have Tim Hacker back for part 2 of our series on 101 ways to become a bona fide ghost hunter, which means we're not skipping any steps at all. In this part, we discuss what types of ghosts you might encounter with some tips from esoteric Buddhist philosophy and conventional European history to reach a deeper understanding of the phenomena itself. You can't just yell at ghosts, you have to understand them. But we also discuss how to interact with the living during your investigation, which is sometimes important, and likewise, some of the dangers you may encounter. In the second half of the episode, we discuss the Screaming Boy's ghost of Kinglsey Wood, Essex, the fruitfulness of repeat investigations with some historical precedents to back it up, and last but not least, what deadly medical condition a ghost may actually be able to give you. Sleep tight, folks. Thank you, and enjoy the show. All right, you want to be a ghost hunter? You got to know where ghosts live. You know where ghosts live?
Where?
Boo York.
That's bad.
Yeah.
You know why monsters don't eat ghosts?
Why?
Because they taste like sheep. How do you talk to Italian ghosts?
How?
With the Luigi board.
Oh, yeah. That's good. I like that one.
Yeah.
Why couldn't the ghost get his girlfriend pregnant?
Why?
He had a Halloweener.
Oh, I thought she miscarried.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, Mari, you're better at dad jokes than dads. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just sniff ghosts with our bare noses and just hope they smell like pizza and new cars instead of brimstone and moldy crotch liquids. Nay, we break out the EMF frequency detectors, quartz pendulums, a notebook, and a litany of security cameras capable of seeing farts in the dark to see if your refrigerator is actually haunted or if you just have people secretly living in your attic, because this week we're unpacking part 2 of our series on 101 ways to be a paranormal investigator, prepared in part by our collaborator and dear friend, Mr. Tim Hacker of the Cryptic Chronicles podcast, crypticchronicles.com.
Hello, hello.
Welcome back to the show, Mr. Tim.
Yeah, let's talk about some spooky stuff.
My life is always spooky, Tim. It's crazy I could keep people like you in it and on the show. Speaking of which, I'm your host, Luke Madrid, also known as the Hack Rabbit. I'm joined this week by my co-host, who's a dog ghost, Mari-sama.
Aroo!
And the weirdly attractive weirdness attractor, Heka Astra.
Hello.
What do you think makes you attractive to ghosts, Heka?
I don't know.
Do you think it's your girl next door aura? Or perhaps the ghost-like wisp of maple syrup scent that radiates from all Canadian people?
Are you saying all Canadians are ghost attractors?
Just the real ones. You know, the ones that if you get really close to their bodies, you can smell the maple. Actually, I believe you taught me this. The maple leaf is used in purification rituals, and so it's a symbol of purity. So actually, the maple leaf should repulse ghosts.
That's what you would think. I don't know. Do I actually smell like maple syrup?
That's racist.
I was gonna say you smell like white girl, but we just don't want to go
They
down
all
that
smell
path.
like they just all smell like Tim Hortons.
This is true.
There's worse smells.
Yep, coffee and donuts. Sometimes maple donuts.
I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily smell, is it? Because wouldn't ghosts be attracted to someone that can actually see them and therefore communicate with them?
Well, to be fair, smell is very important to the spirit world. I believe in the Abram Ellen, they tell you that angels are extremely sensitive to smell. And in terms of ghosts smelling, it's often reported that demons leave a smell of brimstone. Go figure.
And then deceased loved ones can leave a signature smell too, perhaps of like a perfume or tobacco if they smoked, or even coffee if they drink a lot of coffee or were Canadian.
Which brings us to where we left off in our last episode.
15 residual hauntings.
The actual hauntings!
A residual haunting involves the repeated appearance of apparitions or sounds without any interaction with those bearing witness.
Some people have compared them to a recording that just replays itself, often at a specific time or date.
These hauntings are considered to be remnants of energy or memory imprints, often linked to traumatic events from the past. Some theories suggest that materials like quartz or slate can record significant occurrences, which could explain hauntings in older buildings.
You know, there's a term for this. It's called the stone tape theory.
Yeah, there's some esoteric lore that talks about things being recorded in stone. I'm pretty familiar with that.
I personally think it's just any natural material, like wood as well. You get like really old wooden houses, or I think it just ingrains energy, absorbs it.
Yeah, but I think that there's something about maybe stones or maybe crystals that are more potent. But I do agree with you.
Like highly ordered material. That's interesting because growing up, there was a haunted area behind the largest cemetery in town called the Dead Children's Playground. And it's nestled in up against this raw cliff face on the side of a small mountain. So there's all these rocks, like a rock wall. And then you have all of the, you know, the old swing sets and slides and stuff. They're all made out of metal. So you got a lot of metal and exposed rock. And there's a lot of limestone and calcite in the area. So kind of interesting because it would play back, like you said, it was a residual haunting where, you know, after dusk, you apparently could hear these kids playing and the swings would be going, but no one would be there.
That's a perfect example of stone tape theory. People like to attribute it to quartz, old stone, wood, but even though I do believe in stone tape theory to an extent, I know that places hold vibration. If you have thrown a rave somewhere in the mountains multiple years in a row, you can almost feel that the place remembers who you are. And I think places hold memory. I don't know if it holds it in the stone and the wood. That's something that feels intuitive because when we work with magic materials, we know that certain materials hold charge better than others. For instance, we know that plastic is poor, but something that has life in it like wood or stone is really good, and that's something Dion Fortune talks about. But I do know the devil's advocate argument against this, and that's like 50% of documented hauntings and abduction cases happen inside of new buildings and apartments. So that sort of shoots it in the foot.
Indian burial ground?
Well, that's the joke about The Shining, right? Is that almost everywhere in America's native burial ground. So yeah, maybe.
But I mean, that would explain a new building being haunted, I guess.
Well, also you disturb the ground to make something new, and disturbing the ground can cause stuff. So it's, you know, you never know what you're dealing with. If you live in a new apartment, there's no reason you can't be probed by aliens. Now, what would be interesting is to know if new buildings have less residual hauntings.
I mean, it makes sense that they would have less because less energy has been projected in it, right?
In theory.
So, but the thing about residual hauntings is they cannot be interacted with and are more like on rails than other ghostly manifestations. It's like playing a scene from a movie on repeat over and over and over.
All I know is pain.
The manifestation is not sentient or intelligent. Common manifestations include repetitive sounds and smells, which are often triggered by the observer's emotions or environmental factors. A notable example of a residual haunting is the Tower of London, where there have been numerous reports of ghosts, including that of Anne Boleyn.
I remember being a little kid and hearing about this one kid's house, and he supposedly had one of these residual hauntings. And I met kids that were like, yeah, we thought it would be cool, and then we stayed the night there, and it was real, and it was actually pretty scary. and I don't want to stay the night there anymore. Which speaks to the strength of a good residual haunting. They can sometimes be reliable, and unlike most types of paranormal activity, they don't seem to have inhibitions about showing themselves in front of skeptics. So if you could find a good residual haunting, and you could figure out what sets it off, you could show a skeptic, which I think is the best part. Now, you mentioned Anne Boleyn. Turns out she's one of the most famous and well-documented residual hauntings of all time, and what makes her case so compelling is that it marks an event in religious history of the West which changed the world forever. So, it's the 1530s. King Henry is desperate for a male heir. His house, the Tudors, maintain a tenuous control over the British monarchy following a vicious civil war for control of the throne, the War of Roses. All the royals had rose insignias, so it was a bunch of dudes with flower flags fighting it out. Now, the problem is that Henry's first wife, Catherine, is just not producing a male heir, which is quickly becoming a dire situation because it's like the only way for the Tudor dynasty to continue wearing the crown. Besides one female offspring, Mary, who would actually come later to be known as Bloody Mary during her reign as queen.
Yeah.
Right? So that's Bloody Mary. So that's some ghost history right there. That's, off to the side.
It's my Halloween nickname and a drink I like to drink.
I feel like it's most of our first interactions with the supernatural is like, just stand at this mirror and say Bloody Mary 100 times until...
Yep.
I could never do it as a kid.
Oh, I did it, but nothing happened.
I just figured it's not worth it.
It's a haunting image. It's crazy how much this drama of Henry's reverberated through history. Like this particular little story. So this female child, Mary, not good enough for Henry. And sadly, Catherine suffers one miscarriage after another and believing they're cursed. Now, the reason for this, Henry believes is because they're cursed. And it's because a long, long time ago, Catherine used to be married to his brother. But this was like right before he died. And so he would often quote Leviticus 20:21, which is a biblical example of like marrying your brother's widow. And he's basically like, okay, I'm cursed. I'm cursed with these nonstop miscarriages. So having been married to Catherine for 20 years and basically unable to keep it in his pants, Henry's already engaged in an affair with Mary Boleyn, whose scandalous reputation preceded her from the French court. Now, this relationship had gone on for some time and had even hardened over to sort of officially unofficial relationship where Mary's husband and his household regularly received favors or other offers from Henry's court. So this is likely what eventually brought Mary's younger sister Anne into the picture, who Henry eventually fell for and became tacitly obsessed with. Anne, after all, was educated, of good lineage, charming, witty even. Best of all, young and fertile. At least Henry thought so. In fact, no less than 17 of Henry's love letters to Anne are still preserved at the Vatican today and reveal an almost desperate infatuation, one in which he writes, "My heart and I surrender ourselves into your hands. Into your hands I commit my spirit, my father." Sorry, that's System of a Down. Anyway, it showed a level of devotion beyond what you would expect of a king. He was totally obsessed with her. So Anne was interested, but she didn't want to be the side chick. She wanted to be fully wifed up. Besides, he was already humping her older sister. She had to have some kind of a standard. Turns out this proved to be no small obstacle. As circumventing the fact he was already married to Catherine of Aragon, it proved to be a breaking point between King Henry and the Catholic Church, who, under Pope Clement VII, refused to annul his marriage. Now, Catherine's cousin, he turned out to be the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, and he had likely something to do with the Pope's stubbornness. So with the struggle for an annulment at a standstill, Henry held a secret wedding for Anne and himself on January 25th, 1533. Likely because Anne was already a month pregnant with this child, and she was subsequently crowned queen in June later that year. And Anne, likely influenced by reformist ideas from the French court, had introduced Henry to Protestant writings, like those of William Tyndale, who argued that kings should control their own churches. So this gave Henry the perfect opportunity to break with Rome and establish the Church of England in 1534, declaring himself the supreme head, which is still how it works to this day, if I'm not confused. So there's just one problem, though. Their baby, Elizabeth, born a girl. And they tried again and again, but like with Catherine, the next two were miscarriages, one of which reportedly was male. And when Henry saw this, he knew the curse of Leviticus had followed him into his new marriage, and he quickly began courting Jane Seymour, a demure lady-in-waiting who contrasted with Anne's fiery demeanor. She supposedly would argue with Henry in public, which was embarrassing. So on May 2nd, 1536, Anne was arrested and charged with adultery adultery, incest, treason, and plotting to kill the king, Henry, their husband, all in cahoots with her brother George Boleyn. And get this, 5 other men were also named as subjects of her adultery. One even confessed under torture. This trial was not fair. They had like the evil step uncle presiding over it that like hated Anne. You know what I mean? Like they basically just pointed the finger at her and said, "Whore, off with her head." And that's more or less what happened. So sparing her the axe, Henry arranged for a skilled swordsman from Calais to behead her, because the axe is too undignified, I guess. And she's French anyway, so.
You could tell he also kind of felt bad. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done that. Like, he knew that he was being a dick.
Well, when you hear about this on History Channel as a kid, it's like, he was just really horny. But, like, no, he was desperate to keep the Tudors in control. It's like some Game of Thrones thing, right? So on May 19th, 1536, Anne was executed on Tower Green. And this was after delivering a speech affirming her loyalty to Henry and asking for God's mercy. She was a trooper unto the end. Her head was severed cleanly in one stroke, which was the intention. Her body was hastily buried in an unmarked grave in the chapel of St. Peter within the Tower Green, which she is said to haunt to this very day. Now, apparently, everyone has seen this ghost. It's like if you get a job at the Queen Mary, it's part of your interview process. They're going to tell you you're going to see a ghost. It's only a matter of time. So witnesses describe seeing her walking with a procession of knights and ladies, sometimes carrying her severed head, moving silently through the grounds or along corridors. These sightings are repetitive. They always follow the same path, and the figures never acknowledge observers. In the 19th century, a sentry reportedly fainted after seeing Anne's ghostly procession pass through a locked door. And the consistency of these reports and the connection to her violent death is a textbook residual haunting.
Yeah, it sounds like a holographic version of a recreation from a History Channel documentary. Like all of a sudden you start seeing it like the TV is tuning out, but it's real life.
There's a handful of these out there. Another intensely famous one, the battlegrounds around the Civil War. Gettysburg is famous.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, people see the phantom battles all the time.
Yeah, you could show up and hear like trumpets, see people marching in lines.
Explosions from cannon fire.
Yeah, you may see them do a ghostly charge and then disappear. Apparently that's very common. People have been reporting that forever. So like those are the two most famous. And if you know where to go, they're like tourist spots. Like there's nobody stopping you. You can go see if residual hauntings are real for yourself, which I think is fun about residual hauntings. But they're not the only type of haunting in town. Most people don't even know about residual hauntings. Most people would be familiar with our next one.
Number 16, Intelligent and Human Hauntings. In the book, Locating a Haunting, A Ghost Hunter's Guide, we learn about the specific needs associated with intelligent hauntings. Understanding a ghost's motives can shift our perception from fear to sympathy, reducing its influence over us.
It's also a heartwarming way to end a horror movie.
However, it is important to approach investigations with caution to avoid completely exorcising the ghost and to consider alternative methods when trying to end a haunting.
If you put enough gym equipment in your house, the only way to haunt it is by forcing this spirit to work out, which usually tires them out, so...
Yeah, we had a little back and forth about this too because we somewhat disagreed on it.
I just didn't understand what you were saying. Why would you not want to exorcise the ghost?
Because a lot of times, according to this lore, or if you're somebody who has done a lot of like hemisync binaural beats, once in a while, whether it's real or not, you come across something that could be analogous to what would be the spirit of a deceased human. And they usually just want some help and they don't really understand what's going on. So a lot of times, not only in that like more esoteric occult side of things, but in the normal paranormal side of things, if it's not like a TV show wanting ratings, these people, they will usually assist the ghost in understanding what's going on with it in an intelligent haunting. And in doing so, you can help it move on instead of causing more disruptions or even going more malevolent and causing far more issues than it would have normally. So trying to just exorcise it not only could be hurting somebody who's innocent and just needs help, but it could also not be getting rid of the problem and just making it worse.
Okay, that makes sense. And when you look a little closer into it, it turns out the more practical way of getting rid of a spirit is in alignment with some very ancient occult principles, which we're just going to touch on. But we'll get to that real soon.
In the case of an intelligent haunting, utilizing a demonologist or an exorcist of any denomination or paradigm should be a last resort. Instead, the investigator should act like a detective and try to figure out the core reason why the haunting is going on in the first place through research. Many libraries and online websites have myriad newspapers from all across history. Doing a little research like this will greatly assist in finding out the ghost's motives. That is, if they were historically documented in the first place, though. Sometimes it is just a no-win situation in this category.
Yeah, you can just make a ghost up. Like, if you just tell enough people a ghost exists, then it'll start existing.
What was that study called?
It was like one of these, the SPR. It's one of these organizations we're talking about in these episodes. I don't remember which.
It was the Philip experiment.
I think it was.
Yeah, where all of these dude bros, I should be serious, where these randomly hired people off the street got together and did an experiment where they made up this ghost's origins out of nowhere. It was all fake, and they did all the classic like seance stuff, talking about the ghost, summoning the ghost and whatnot. And guess what happened? This manufactured ghost named Philip showed up.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it kind of is, but it's also how magic works, so.
Can a spirit cry when it's sad, laugh when amused, or be angry if ignored? Well, if it's an intelligent haunting, according to this lore, yes. The book Picture Yourself Ghost Hunting has a lot to say on this subject, just like The Living. Discovering someone's motivations tells you a lot about their actions. However, with ghosts, the spirit itself might not be aware of its motivations in the first place. Ghosts often linger in our world as a result of unfinished business or deep emotional connections to the living. These entities, known as intelligent human hauntings, exhibit awareness that can interact with those still alive. Their motivations may range from a desire for closure to a longing for recognition, leading them to reach out in various ways, sometimes subtle, other times dramatically. These encounters can evoke a wide array of emotions from curiosity to fear as they reveal the complexities of life and the ties that bind us even after death. It is these types of spirits that tend to make the hair stand up on the back of our necks, leaving an unforgettable impression on those who experience their presence. Many who claim they'd like to see a ghost do not really wish that and somewhat regret it after actually experiencing an intelligent haunting, because this stuff can just be so traumatic and scarring.
Even in the case of the residual haunting I was speaking of earlier, it was the sound of a murder taking place. So when the kids heard it, it was not fun. You know what I mean? They're like, I wish I hadn't heard it now. So imagine if it were an intelligent haunting. That'd be even scarier. Okay, but let's say it is an intelligent haunting. What's the kind of, activity we could expect?
Objects vanish and reappear in odd locations. Presence felt through cold spots and watched sensations. Unexplained sounds occur. Furniture and small items move or are thrown.
You notice they never move the barbells?
Doors and windows open and close without explanation. Lights, TVs, radios, and faucets operate on their own.
You notice they never turn on the treadmill, Tim?
Fat ghosts.
Hubba hubba.
This sounds a lot like Poltergeist, but it's not that.
Seriously, though, ghosts just sound like they're kind of annoying.
Apparitions often emerge with specific purposes, seeking assistance or communication with the living, rather than merely haunting places. The presence of spirits characterizes intelligent hauntings, typically those of deceased humans or animals, who endeavor to interact with the living in meaningful ways. These encounters, which often occur shortly after the passing of a loved one, can provide a source of comfort and reassurance to those mourning their loss, helping them to cope with the grief and maintain a connection to the deceased. Just as often, though, these hauntings are spirits that have lingered for some time in agony, heightening people's fear of death. I know the possibility of being cursed to linger and suffer outside my control after death sends chills down my spine, just thinking about it, possibly happening or whatever. And I have a pretty sturdy backbone.
Have you ever seen that film, Enter the Void?
No.
Mm-mm.
You should watch it because that's what it's about.
Hmm.
And this is also essentially what the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or Bardo Thodol, deals with and is intended to help prevent. We did a whole episode on it, but just to recap a little bit. In Tibetan Buddhism, if you read the Bardo Thodol, you do it for the person who is dying or recently deceased with the expressed intention that they remember to not become a ghost of this sort. This is accomplished by staying aware when the clear light, pure consciousness, God, the Holy Spirit, the Buddha mind, whatever you want to call it, appears, and then it is recognized and identified with. This stage is known as the Chikai Bardo. If it is done successfully, the deceased may stop the cycle of karmatic reincarnation and merge into a higher state of being. The Bardo Thodol describes this as merging with the Dharmakaya, the ultimate truth body of the Buddha, which is the formless, infinite essence of reality. If you're a Christian, that would be becoming one with Christ, I guess. But if the deceased fails to recognize the clear white light, they become a ghost. This is when they enter the Chonyin Bardo, and things start to to get unpleasant. First, you're greeted by any number of benevolent and wrathful deities, which are, as the text explains, projections of one's own mind, which is now dying. This, too, is an opportunity to recognize the truth of their nature as projections of the self. But if the deceased fails to do this too, they enter what is known as the Sidpa Bardo, where they become as wandering ghosts driven by the cruel whip of karma. The text describes how beings with strong attachments, unresolved desires, or negative karma may become stuck in this bardo, experiencing even greater suffering. These beings may perceive the living, their former possessions, or places they were attached to, like their home or workplace. Often, the dead are tormented by the cries and wailing of their grief-stricken family and friends, which they see and hear, but are unable to touch or communicate with. It is described as being imperceptible to the living and able to move through solid objects, but not really interact with them. You know, like in that movie Ghost. If they fail to recognize their situation, they are then chased by violent, hideous demons which pursue them without pause. The deceased spirit becomes tired, confused, scared, and thirsty, in a state of stupefied terror, until finally, often by desperation, refuge is found haphazardly in a new incarnation, chosen hastily by the blind idiot of karma, which can result in being born to a bad family or even as an animal, effectively cut off from the wisdom teachings which lead to liberation. So it is a motivator for a lot of folks to not become a wandering ghost, and there's an entire religious practice devoted to preventing becoming one. And so this statement you always hear about, oh, they have unfinished business. Well, that brings a new twist to it, doesn't it? Because a ghost doesn't have business. A ghost needs to let go of their business, right? You know what I mean? They think they have unfinished business. They think they still have stuff to do, but they don't. And this is this like wandering in a state of unconsciousness and torment. And living on that side, going through what they're going through could be awful and confusing and terrible, which would make sense why they don't always act totally intelligently, or why they seem afraid or confused or upset or whatever, or maybe attracted to certain emotions or whatever. And so what do you hear ghost hunters always saying? They're like, send him to the clear white light. Well, that's because the Tibetan Buddhists have been doing it that way for centuries. It's just a little more technical with a bunch of fancy words that had D and H and Y and K in it.
I forget what denomination it is, but some Hindus believe that what happens to you after you die greatly depends on your thoughts just before death. So if you're confronted by something outside of your control that leads to your demise, according to them, it could have some pretty serious consequences for what awaits you when you leave your mortal toil. The idea of like just thinking and feeling the wrong way when you die can like screw you over in the underworld. It's just horrifying.
No, it really is. I knew an old, very wise Hindu woman who managed an esoteric library I used to study in, and during one of the visits, the topic of tragic accidents came up, and she, a woman I had always known to be almost mystical in her composure, cried out during the conversation how unsettling an idea it was to even consider dying during a plane crash. And for a woman who seemed totally beyond all worldly attachment, her reaction to this stood out to me. Like, I didn't understand. And she sort of hinted at something like this, that it has something to do with the spirit after death, and like dying in a plane crash was like one of the worst ways to go. And while he's obviously not Hindu, the head of Tibetan Buddhism, the 14th Dalai Lama, he's also said to be deathly afraid of flights. So I don't know everything, but you might be onto something there, Tim.
Yes, but there are all kinds of reasons for intelligent hauntings, not just feeling and thinking the wrong way when you die. Ghosts may form attachments to particular locations or objects, believing they still have roles to fulfill as protectors or residents of those places. This attachment can lead them to retain both the personality and appearance they possessed in life, sometimes manifesting in familiar clothing or distinctive characteristics that were recognizable to their loved ones. They could also look like an ideal form or a symbolic version of themselves.
This is what we were talking about with the smell of cigarettes. If I had to give my 2 cents, I would wager the items that we use most in life, the ones we pour our energy through, they become either part of us in some way, or we infuse them with some of our eternal soul in some way. And that's why a household object turns into a yokai after 100 years of use. Right?
Additionally, reports of ghostly animal apparitions, particularly those of beloved pets, are quite common. Kids are said to see phantom pets all the time. These spectral companions often bring joy and solace to those who have lost them, further blurring the lines between life and the afterlife. And I, for one, would welcome any of my lost beloved pets to come home and visit me anytime, any place. Personally, Personally, I connect more with animals than humans in a lot of ways and grow incredibly attached to my animals.
Same.
I remember I had a pet moth as a kid, and then, well, it was a caterpillar at first, and then it turned into a cocoon, and then it hatched out as a moth, and I let it go, and then I had a dream that it came back to visit me. I was really sad. That's all I remember. I remember being really sad.
That's cute.
You know, if you give your pet a really, really good life, according to their advanced karma, they're much more likely to reincarnate as humans, and then they can suffer taxes and smogging their vehicles like the rest of us.
To effectively distinguish between intelligent hauntings, where communication is sought, and residual hauntings, where only impressions of the past is like an echo, it is beneficial to conduct thorough interviews with witnesses. Gathering detailed accounts helps clarify the nature of the haunting experiences not only they have encountered, but will also reduce a lot of the work on the investigator's end. Talk to as many people as you can, not only witnesses, but people who know the witnesses too. The deeper the relationship, the better.
So, like, you could probably tell if the haunting was residual or not by dressing up as a gorilla and then seeing if the ghost reacts to your new appearance. If the ghost ignores the gorilla suit, it's probably residual. I know. I'm an expert.
Hey!
Poltergeists represent a unique subset of intelligent hauntings that do not have a discernible human source. In fact, the human factor in poltergeist cases is usually non-existent. Instead, they engage in interactive behaviors, such as moving objects or creating disturbances, often attributed to pent-up energy rather than a communicative intent.
Let's say you try the gorilla suit tactic with a poltergeist. It's very likely you're going to get a banana thrown at your head when you're not looking, or you're going to hear the sound of silverback gorillas upstairs when there's nobody upstairs. And when you go up there, there might even be gorilla poop on the walls, flung about. Be careful what you do with a gorilla suit and ghost hunting. It's dangerous.
However, that doesn't mean that there have not been poltergeist cases that have some activity in common with intelligent hauntings. Like, for example, look at a case that we've talked about before, the Black Monk of Pontefract. However, understanding these various manifestations helps illuminate the complex relationship between the living and the spiritual realm, and intimate knowledge of all of them is required for any paranormal investigator worth their salt. Study up.
I think it's worth mentioning there's plenty of people that conceptualize poltergeists as uncontrolled usage of one's psychic faculties, like in the Stephen King movie Carrie. It's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Now, as this popular horror film explores, it's sometimes said that the psychic energy is strongest in boys and especially girls around the time they begin puberty. To keep this theme going, this too corresponds to a niche idea in Tibetan esoteric Buddhism, which holds the ideal femur bone for the Kinglsey bone flute is fashioned from a boy or a girl around this age, approximately 14 or so. In fact, the Kinglsey bone flute itself is specifically fashioned to conjure ghosts, as it explains in the Wikipedia.
In tantric chewed practice, the practitioner, motivated by compassion, plays the Kinglsey as a gesture of fearlessness to summon hungry spirits and demons so that she or he may satisfy their hunger and thereby relieve their sufferings. It is also played as a way of cutting off of the ego.
Let's not even talk about demons or elementals yet, but that's another dense topic of its own that all paranormal investigators will come across if they have a long enough career. There's no need to get into the nitty-gritty just yet. It's better to master the basics, such as...
Oh, now we're moving on, because in terms of elementals, you pretty much have to exercise them, right?
Yeah, they're dicks.
So you're not going to be able to have tea with an elemental and be like, oh, remember, Grandma, you died. Oh, no, we're taking care of your grandkids. Ah.
No,
elementals are more like, I'm going to catch you on fire.
Or explode the tea out of your tea set.
Yeah. 17. Research the site. Thorough preparation is crucial for conducting a successful paranormal investigation.
It's basically like preparing for a rock show or rave. You need to scope out the location, consider all the equipment you're schlepping, how does it all work together, what safety procedures are you going to follow, you know, all the boring stuff.
Additionally, take the time to conduct background research on the location and any relevant history that may inform your investigation. Understanding the context can provide valuable insights and help to explain any unusual occurrences.
This could be the entire show if you think about it. You can only shout at ghosts so much. At some point, you're going to become a history nerd. That's the only way you're going to make it as a ghost hunter. You basically need an entire posse of geeks.
Yeah, totally. 18. Doing a walkthrough and site check with the client. When interacting with clients, always maintain a professional demeanor. This includes active listening, empathy, and clear communication to ensure that they feel comfortable sharing their experience experiences and concerns. Building rapport with clients can lead to more honest and detailed accounts, enhancing the quality of the investigation. Also, make sure to dress professionally, as this will greatly enhance the credibility with clients. Showing up in a robe or looking like someone from a Marilyn Manson music video is an easy way to lose clients before any rapport is established in the first place.
Unless that's your gimmick.
Yeah, if you're a professional cringe lord, totally.
No, you gotta have at least one freak on the squad, Tim. Ideally, it's the psychic, because that's how you know they can actually see dead people. Nobody wears coffin earrings that doesn't talk to ghosts or consort with fairies. It's important, to show some diversity on your team. You get one mohawk per ghost squad. You get 37 facial piercings to split between everyone, but that's it.
Oh, we'll get to how to handle psychics on your team. Don't you worry.
Is there a section for that?
There is indeed. Conduct a walkthrough with the client before the investigation to gather information and set up follow-up options. Take baseline recordings with monitoring equipment during the walkthrough. Aim to walk the site during daylight to identify physical hazards. Inquire about common hazards, structurally unsound areas, clutter, hazardous chemicals, and sharp tools. Note any impediments to the investigation, such as areas the client refuses to access.
Oh, that's my Twinkie wrapper room. Don't go in there.
Research the building's age and ownership history. Verify site information independently. Create an environmental worksheet to conduct factors affecting health and investigation, e.g. wiring issues, mold, air quality. Structural issues/electronical issues can affect EMF readings and should be monitored for possible impacts on the investigation. Encourage the client to highlight areas of concern or unusual experiences during the walkthrough.
You know where this is especially important? The Winchester Mystery Mansion, because if you're not paying attention, you just walk through a door and just fall 4 stories down into the garden below. You know what I mean? They have doors that lead to nowhere. So right
into the void. Whoop! Say hi to Cthulhu for me.
I mean, you got to chart all the rusty nails in the day.
19. Equipment check and deployment. One of the most important things that any paranormal group requires is organization. Designate an equipment manager to oversee gear responsibilities, such as Mari for our example, if we ever do a ghost team. This individual should charge and test batteries, pack the equipment, and manage the setup and breakdown process.
Ideally, this person should have thick glasses, maybe a speech impediment.
Since exhausted investigators might be tempted to cut corners when packing, it's important to choose a responsible volunteer for this role and not just anyone from the group.
You know, the type of person who insufflates their prescription Ritalin, that person.
Whoever is the most reliable is a good candidate. In amateur groups, members often manage their own equipment. To avoid bringing unnecessary gear, evaluate what is essential for each investigation. You want to have as little as possible while still having everything that's necessary.
You need a fanny pack, wizard rope, and pendulum.
Having too much equipment can increase setup time and complicate monitoring. Remember that having more gear does not guarantee better evidence capture. Focus on what is specifically needed for the case at hand and leave everything else behind.
Leave behind anything you don't really know how to use.
For smaller sites, a streamlined approach to equipment is beneficial. Use wheeled luggage for easier transport and gear storage. Big luggage bags and wheels on them will make your life 100% easier, as all experienced paranormal investigators will agree with.
You remember in high school, our backpacks had wheels like that, remember?
Yeah, they were dope as f***. It's necessary to collect data with your gear, but it's just as important for an investigator to collect data through conversations. 21. Client interviews and collecting eyewitness accounts. In fact, half or more of paranormal investigations data is going to come from talking to people. Pick out who's best with communication skills in your group and assign them to be the quote-unquote face when interacting with the public, clients, or witnesses. This doesn't necessarily mean that they are the leader of the group, but the investigator or investigators with these required skills should be the face of the group. You don't want the grumpy person in the group talking to people about topics that might be sensitive.
Because your theory is we're going to go down there and have a donkey barbecue and I'm going to furnish the ass, right?
Or try to get into places where you normally wouldn't be able to be allowed into. You want the charmer to take that lead. Just like in all other aspects of life, charisma will go a long way in taking the path of least resistance.
I feel like we could make a damn good ghost hunting RPG using all these points as game mechanics. like the face of the group would have to have high charisma stat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they'd also have to deal with people who are having like trauma or mental illness at the same time as being like a swindler.
I'd play that.
You know, there's a lot of ghost hunting games out there now.
Oh yeah, totally. Like Visage is one of my favorites.
I haven't played any of them, but I think I would. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really funny to actually come across a game that scares me. So I'm always down. There's another book on Steam you should check out. It's kind of along these same lines of what we're talking about. And it's like a simulator and it has like demons in it and stuff. It's really, really good. I liked it a lot, even though it's pretty low budget. What's the name of those people who like cut up cadavers or take care of dead bodies?
Mortician?
Mortician.
Yes. It's called the Mortician Simulator or something like that.
Oh, I saw that. That looked fun.
Yeah.
Fun.
It's fucking dope. I beat that shit. Only 2 of the endings. I think there's like 6 or something. I don't know.
What?
I don't remember. It's been a bit. Anyway, the following is important to keep in mind. Good listening and rapport building skills are essential for ghost hunters. Eyewitnesses may be in distress and fear ridicule. Empathy is important. Investigators should treat client interviews like accident witness interviews.
Like, just assume the memories they're experiencing are traumatic, because they might be.
They probably are. In-person interviews are crucial for assessing client credibility and mental stability.
Make sure they're not super duper high on meth.
I don't know. It's a good way to see the shadow people, dude. Use a form to gather initial information while maintaining client comfort. Client privacy and anonymity must be strictly respected. Reassure clients that their experiences are common, drawing on paranormal knowledge. Maintain professionalism to ensure clients feel safe and respected, especially in homes with children.
Especially if they have a gun.
22. Confidentiality and protecting the client's privacy. Clients who contact paranormal investigators often have unusual experiences and may feel vulnerable. It is essential to reassure clients about their privacy and confidentiality as well during investigations. This is probably the most important thing to keep in mind, even over paranormal stuff. So don't forget it. Client confidentiality includes not disclosing the client's identity or family details, keeping the investigation location secret, especially in small towns, suppressing information that might reveal the client's identity or site location. Investigators must be careful about their conversations as well to avoid accidental slips. Many teams use confidentiality agreements to ensure client information is protected. All team members should sign confidentiality agreements to uphold responsibility and liability.
If you find any dead bodies on the client's property, never, ever tell the police. In fact, help the client dispose of all evidence of any murders. The cops probably won't suspect you because you're just a ghost hunter. And then you can blackmail the client later and threaten to tell the police unless they give you $1 million. See, I'm full of ideas.
What the confidentiality agreement form?
Wait, we're going to tell them the confidentiality agreement form?
Do it. Give in to your anger. Mar.
We're going to make Mari read this right now?
She is the gear master of our paranormal investigation team, after all. So she'd be in charge of all this.
Oh, okay. A typical agreement form should state the following as quoted from the book 101 Ways to Find a Ghost. We respect your privacy rights and guarantee that your confidential information will remain protected. We consider any information shared during the investigation, as well as any information that may be unintentionally obtained, to be confidential. This includes the names and identities of all parties involved, clients, witnesses, landmarks, and the physical address of the investigation, as well as any other details that could identify the location. On occasion, our organization may seek to use information and evidence collected during the investigation for educational or promotional purposes, including potential inclusion on our website. Please indicate your preferred level of confidentiality that you would be comfortable with. Is that good, or do you want me to keep going?
Occasionally, investigators working on paranormal cases find themselves in a position to openly share detailed accounts of their experiences, benefiting not only their own teams, but also the locations involved. A prominent example of this is the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast, a historic site that gained significant notoriety following its feature on the popular television series Ghost Hunters. This exposure has drawn countless visitors eager to explore the notorious history of the location, which is linked to the infamous unsolved murders of Andrew and Abby Borden.
On August 4, 1892, Andrew Borden, a wealthy businessman, was found on the couch in his parlor at his Fall River home in Massachusetts, struck 10, maybe even 11 times with a hatchet. His wife, Abby, was...
I didn't think this was an unsolved murder case because I thought it was their daughter, Lizzie. There's even a rhyme. I don't know if you guys know the rhyme or...
I think I've heard it once or twice.
Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother something like however many whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 21 or something like that.
Well, the dad only got struck 10 to 11 times, so you know what? The rhyme is wrong.
It's exaggerating for entertainment effect.
I probably have the numbers wrong. It could be 10 and 1.
Well, hold on a minute, because Abby, the wife, was found upstairs in a guest room with no less than 19 below close to the back of her head. Now, it is true that their daughter Lizzie, age 32, was the only other person home during the event, which she ultimately was acquitted of the next year due to a lack of evidence. She said she didn't hear anything.
Yeah, sure.
No one was ever convicted, and the case remains one of America's most infamous unsolved mysteries. And because we have the rule of law in this country that you need to be convicted by a jury of your peers in order to be guilty, it is considered an unsolved crime. The Boleyn house, now a bed and breakfast and museum, is widely regarded as, of course, you may imagine, haunted. Guests and staff report paranormal activity all the time, including apparitions, particularly in the guest room and parlor. Unexplained footsteps, whispers, and cries are frequently heard, especially at night. Visitors report feelings of unease, cold spots, or being touched, particularly in Abby's murder room.
In instances where confidentiality agreements are not in place, paranormal investigators are able to discuss their findings with other enthusiasts and professionals in the field. When freed from these restrictions, teams can freely share their evidence online, showcasing a variety of materials such as electronic voice phenomena, EVP, photographs, and video recordings that capture unique occurrences within haunted locations. Just make sure to only do this when there are no confidentiality agreements behind the scenes, or it will very much inevitably bite you in the butt, big picture.
You have big butt pictures?
Subscribe to Tim's OnlyFans.
I'm sassy. Collaborative sharing of information not only enhances the credibility of paranormal research, but also cultivates a community where investigators can learn from one another's experiences and insights, which enables a deeper understanding of the phenomena they seek to explore. So, make sure to rub shoulders with other paranormal investigators as much as possible.
Be careful though, don't actually rub other paranormal investigators.
Or do, as long as they're okay with it.
Yeah, make sure you have their consent first.
Or you could just haunt them yourself.
But if you'd like to hear the rest of part 2 of our vast guide of how to become a ghost hunter, which includes the screaming boy ghost of Kingsley Wood, Essex, making an honest assessment about somebody's haunted property or not, the actual bona fide threat of what happens when you ignore 1 or 2 or maybe 7 or 8 of these rules, like what can actually happen.
The most haunted house in England.
Yes, and how it is possible to do more than one trip at a haunted place. And last but not least, how a ghost can kill you. And please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you the extended version of this episode, you'll get the extended, uncensored version of every single one of our episodes stretching back before the quarantine times, which is fading like memory in the sun because of traumatic flashbacks that we don't want to talk about. Where was I going with this? If that's not all, I'll send you a 5x5 high-quality vinyl sticker for our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art, and you'll get the secret keys to our Discord server, where I beg of you, please share your UFO or haunted cupboard videos that you took yourself, and we will share with you our pet photos. Until then, thank you, everybody. Eat carrots and shoot lasers.
Pew pew.